So if you didn't get to one of those, that's what this is. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button, if I can find that again. Looks like I might be recording already. Okay, so we're going to be talking today about schedules, time management plans, and easier workloads. So the reason I'm doing this is I'm your community engagement specialist. I'm Daisha Oshiro. You see lots of emails that will come to you from me. I have a lot of educational experience. I worked in the Valley for about 10 years at a traditional school. I then taught for ASU for a couple years. I joined K-12 in 2013 and as a teacher. And then for the last couple of years, I jumped over to work more hands-on with the families, the new families, the families that were struggling, just got to work a little bit more with them. So we're going to start with the same idea that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. There is not anybody who gets some bonus hours, and I know Mrs. Hall and myself have tried many times to get some extra hours added, and it just doesn't work that way. So, which is probably a good blessing because I'm sure we'd spend more time working. But for now, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and that's important to know because there are people who say, I don't have enough time to get it all done, and there are people who say, I get it all done and then have extra time. And I always wonder, what is it that makes somebody get things done and somebody not get things done? Oh, again, we have the 24 hours each day, and nobody gets any more or any less. We all have our own time management skills, so we use them in different ways. I know when I am not in any way thinking about what I should be doing, I become a little unproductive, and perhaps I am easily distracted by my children who want to do anything that's not productive. So I tend to follow along with them. I have to be very aware of what's going on. If I want things done, I need to make sure I'm paying attention. Even as a teacher, I always had students who tried to distract me and ask questions and get us off on a tangent. So it's important that I am aware of what I want to get done and make sure I can get that done. And time, it's irrecoverable and irreplaceable, so I don't get it back. I have to choose if I'm going to spend a couple hours watching Netflix with my children. I need to know that I'm going to be losing those hours. And maybe it's okay for that moment, but I can't spend a weekend or a week or a summer watching Netflix. It just doesn't work for us, as much fun as it would be. So I'm going to ask at this point, before I jump into this one, let me go back really quick. I'm going to ask a poll. I'm going to give you a poll that's going to show up on your screen. And I'd like to see what grades we're working with in here. So what are your children in? Are your children in elementary? Are they in middle school? Are they in high school? It looks like we have quite a few answers coming in, and middle school is winning. I'm going to show this with you in just a moment. Quite a few middle school families today. I'll give you about 5 more seconds and then I'll go ahead and share the poll answers with you. All right. I'm hoping you're able to see the poll answers on your screen. It does show that we had elementary. We had 4 of you from elementary. 5 of you have middle school students and 3 have high school students. And I would imagine some of you actually have a mixture of a combination of maybe all of them. I see some things in chat. Let me check that out. Okay. So I will be sharing some things throughout this lesson, and I'll try to gear them to all of you. I'll make sure it's pertinent to elementary and middle and high school so that we can make sure that you're all getting information that is helpful to you. So now I'm going to go back to the next screen, and I'm going to ask that you do a little bit more with me. If you look at the top, you should be able to move your mouse or your cursor around the top, and you'll see a little image that says annotate. It's a little black bar. If you click on annotate and then you click on text or draw, you should be able to write on this screen. So I'm hoping perhaps you guys can interact with us a bit and maybe tell us some big things that you do or that your children do that might waste time. So for instance, I could say for my children, they like to play video games. They like to go on walks. They like Netflix. What are some things that you or your children do that might be a waste of time? And maybe it's fun, maybe it's not a waste of time, but what are some things you do that are not quite school specific? You can put it in the chat box if you don't want to do it on the whiteboard. I see. Netflix. Yes, that one is definitely becoming more and more popular, I think, as time goes on, and shows that we like. I see a lot of shows that I used to watch way back when, before kids, um, and they start showing up on Netflix or some of those other channels, and I would love to just sit down and watch those for hours. Oh, sightseeing and hiking, that is amazing. Right now, you know, I just was told I live on the West Valley and the White Tank Mountains are shut down because of all the flooding, which is kind of exciting for us on the west side because we never get any rain. So that's enjoyable. Walks, quad rides, that is exciting. Games, my children, they like to play board games as well. My son, oh, he would try and distract me all the time. Mom, do you want to play this? Mom, do you want to play that? And he knows my games, the ones I like. Scrabble. You say Scrabble and I'm all in. Forget schoolwork, forget homework. Let's play some Scrabble. So yeah, we have to watch that too. I can't let him distract me. Tablet, that's a good thing. We could spend lots of time on our tablets. These are great answers, and I am super happy to hear that I am not the only one that has all of all of these things that could suck away my time. So thank you all for joining me in that, making me feel better. All right, so what I'm going to do before we jump into schedules is I'm going to show you, I think it's about 4 minutes. It's a video from K-12, and it's one that they put together to show you some key things that tie in our school and our thoughts on scheduling. And it shows you a little bit about the teacher's point of view and the family's point of view, and a little bit from K-12 and what they're hoping your point of view is. So let me stop this screen really quick, and I'm going to play that for you. Sometimes I get too many screens going and I can't get back to what I'm trying to do. All right, let's see, I think I have it. Maybe. All right, Mrs. Hall, will you let me know, do you see the K-12 enrolled family screen? No, I knew it. All right, let me try that one more time. Now do you? Excellent. All right, my sharing is not my friend today. All right, I apologize for that. So let me play this. Should work now for you.
In addition to engaging curriculum and innovative online tools, your student's K-12 powered school has a talented faculty, which includes state certified or licensed teachers. We continue to drive technological advancements and innovation while also investing in what continues to truly matter, the human factor, great teachers. Teachers and staff are trained in how to effectively work in an online environment, including being able to assess where your student is academically at key points of the year, and then mapping out a student-centered learning path. This student-centered learning path includes the K-12 curriculum and may include required or optional live class connect sessions and the need for supplementary help sessions. Your student may have more or fewer required live class connect sessions and help sessions than other students. The path is mapped to what your student needs.
As a teacher, I'm able to see real-time data, how the student's doing. I'm able to see when they accessed the lesson, the score they received on the assessment, how many times they took the assessment, how long it took them. And I'm able to use that to really drive my instruction for classes later in the week, or to reach out to that student or the learning coach and provide assistance if I think that they're really struggling with something.
It is important to structure your daily schedule around your students' required Class Connect and help sessions. Your K-12 Powered School will share more about what the school year will look like for your student. We have gathered helpful tips from longtime learning coaches about schedules and routines. Most successful school days begin with daily logging into the online school, checking the daily schedule and calendar each morning, or even the night before. It is an important part of a successful school routine. While your student has some ability to order and organize their work according to their personal preference, there will be regular required Class Connect sessions that cannot be missed. These will be listed in the calendar and daily plan. Teachers and administrators know that establishing routines during the first days and weeks of school helps make this year more successful.
Just like any mom, I'm getting the kids up and rolling out of bed, breakfast, and then everyone checks their emails, and then they all check their Class Connect schedules. And then I always have a capability to see all of their Class Connect schedules as well, and just to see who's going to be doing what and kind of have an outline of the day. And then as everyone is going through their school process, then I pop in periodically just to see how everyone's doing, making sure they're really paying attention and focused through their class. And if they have questions, then I'm always accessible to them.
Students need structure and routines and enjoy having the security of a planned sequence of events.
Typically, we get up in the morning. I get up in the morning. And I like to get everything prepared, get all the coursework together, get breakfast ready, lunch ready, and then ask Zachary to get up out of bed. He typically is up about 7:30, and that's when the work really begins. All the preparation work and organizing helps us to have a smooth day.
It's also important to realize that there might be interruptions, unexpected events, and illnesses that occur. For smaller interruptions, try to get back on task as quickly as possible. For longer interruptions, work with your student's K-12 Powered School to identify ways to get your students back on track. As you prepare your daily schedule and daily routine, remember that consistency is essential in the development of a good schedule. It might take time to find what works for your family and start seeing the positive results. A well thought out plan and consistent routine are keys to success. And as you think through your family schedule and routine, I also encourage you to protect time for your student to be social. Maybe sign your child up for a local youth sports league, volunteer organization, or choir. And take advantage of the school activities such as online clubs and student contests, and the parent support offered through your K-12 Powered School. I hope you have found these tips to be helpful. Together, we can maximize every school day that belongs to your child.
All right, thank you for watching that. Let me go right back to our presentation. Let's see if I can figure out where it was in our presentation. Make sure that's working. And I thought it would take me right back. All right, so thank you for bearing with me. So K-12 definitely has some key things that they want you to think about, and it's the same things that we all think about when we're really thinking in terms of what do we need to get done. And I know as adults we all have jobs. Maybe it's in the house, maybe it is our house, maybe it's our children, our family. Maybe it's not an outside job, or maybe it's a job in the house like me. I'm sitting at home from home, and that's my job. So we all have things that we have to think about in terms of getting them done, and we have to think, okay, what am I doing first? What am I doing next? What is my schedule? So we're going to look at some things that we've heard from other online families, or things that we know works. So one thing is that families recommend, and a lot of the families say, you need some type of schedule. Online schooling is a little, I want to say ambiguous. It's a little bit broad. People feel like it's so big, they have so much time, there's so much to it that they can just kind of do it when they want. But you really do need to think about it like a typical school schedule. I need to do math today, I need to do reading today. So you need to sort of hone in a little bit on each day and what you're going to be doing. You might not have, or you might start with a conventional plan, but maybe it looks a little different. So I know when my children were going here, we started with, okay, let's do math, at 9 o'clock. And it didn't end up being good for us to have such structure like that. We needed a little more loosey-goosey. When you have a couple of people at home, you need to be able to make it work for you. So you might not want a super plan. That might not be ideal for you, but your family, make it fit your needs. Well, that was fast. You also want to think about your children, because I know my daughter, she's up and at 'em in the morning. My son is not. So we have to work on that. My daughter started doing her coursework in the morning. She'd have all her lessons done, and then she'd go to her Class Connects. My son was the opposite. We tried it that way. It did not work. So I let him sleep in. He then did his online lessons when they were scheduled, and he started his actual schoolwork in the evening. So he did his Class Connects in the day and his schoolwork in the evening. And it worked for him, and that made it work for us. And then having a schedule, it will just help if you think about that you need to go to lunch at some point. You need to eat lunch. You need to have snacks. You need the chance to get up. Sometimes we think, oh, just sit down at the computer and do all the things, but it doesn't really work that way, and they need to move around. Even if they're high school or middle school, they need a break. I need a break when I'm sitting here, from 8 to 5. I can't just sit and push buttons. I need to make sure I'm giving myself a break. One thing that we all tend to do when we start thinking about our schedules, and I am a huge fan of sticky notes, whether it's the digital sticky notes on my computer or the actual sticky notes that I like to put on my computer or all around my office. I have a drawer dedicated just to sticky notes because I get them for holidays from all of my family. But I tend to do what this guy does. I have so many things, and I can't do all of those things, and it becomes a little bit overwhelming. So we have to avoid what my daughter and I call the mind tornado. Sometimes we spin, we start thinking I have to do this and this and this, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's, soon it's this giant spiraling mess. It's a mind tornado. So you have to, again, be able to focus yourself and then help your children do the same, help your students. It can be overwhelming to jump into these online schools. There's just so many pieces to it. So we want to make sure that you're not spinning. If you are, reach out to your advisor. They're your built-in superhero. They are your person for the whole year. Or reach out to your teachers, reach out to me. There's lots of us that are here to help you, avoid that mind tornado. And our online school, it does have a lot of pieces to it. So we want to make sure that we're, being helpful to you. Some tips. Maybe you have scheduled study time. I knew when my daughter was doing her work in the morning, just let her be. As much as it would be super easy to just walk in and say, hey, did you put your laundry away? Or, hey, I got this call. I needed to respect her schoolwork time. We did end up getting a sign on her door just so that she could let us know, hey, I'm doing my schoolwork. But I don't think you absolutely have to have a sign on your door. Same thing with my son. When he was working at night, it was really easy for me to say, hey, can you feed the dogs? Hey, can you do that? But I had to respect that he was actually doing something as well. Don't procrastinate. And I know my son got to do his work in the evening, but he wasn't allowed to put that off till morning. If he was going to work in the evening, the deal was he actually had to do his work. When dinner was over, he had to sit down and do his work. And it worked for him. When dinner's over, I want to stop working. I want to now sit down and do whatever it is I want to do. And he knew he had to not join those fun things if he didn't do his work earlier. And then we really want to make sure you ask for help. If you're having any sorts of trouble, definitely let your teachers know. If you're having any questions, you let your advisors know. And when in doubt on who to go to, reach out to your advisor and they'll help you understand who to go to or how to get the answers you need. All right, we are going to do another poll. So let me put this up here for you. All right, so who currently uses a schedule with your students for your schoolwork? What are some of you thinking? You have a schedule. Maybe you don't have a schedule. Maybe you want one. And it's hard, I think, sometimes as a family with an online student. It is really hard. I see a lot of you do. That is fantastic. And sometimes our schedules look, like I said, they look very different. Mine will look very different from yours, which will look very different from your neighbors. But as long as we're making things work, then ultimately that is the goal. And let me show you the results. All right, so we had quite a few that do actually have a schedule in place. And mine was never written down. It was just sort of known. My daughter works in the morning. In the day, they do their live class connects. In the evening, my son does his work. So that was our, slightly loosey-goosey schedule, but definitely a schedule. We knew what was happening for those specific times. Thank you so much for sharing those answers. All right, so now I'm going to ask you to use the chat box. So if you hover your mouse or move your mouse or run it along the bottom of the black area, you'll see a little bubble that pops up if you haven't used it already, and it's the chat area. So in the chat area, do you think most of your day or most of your children's day is spent on schoolwork? Maybe it's part of your day. Maybe it's just a tiny little part of your day. How much of your day is spent on schoolwork in a Monday through Friday situation? All right, and I seem to have lost the chat. So I'm hoping, I saw some go through, but I cannot read them. Sometimes my chat box disappears and it is gone right now. Mrs. Hall, do you see lots of answers in the chat area?
There we go. You muted me. She doesn't like me to talk.
Oops.
That's okay. Yeah, there's a lot. Most people are working most of the day, 60% of the day. Seems like less schoolwork than last year. But I would say most or part of the day is what's taken up with schoolwork at this point in time.
And that sounds about right, especially if we have a lot of you who are middle school or older, and elementary too. There's a lot of pieces to schoolwork, and sometimes it feels like a long time. I did have a family I worked with, and they said it took them 3 hours to do their math lesson, and I thought, well, that's a long time. And so we talked a little bit more, and I realized the student was doing the homework in front of Netflix, which will definitely stretch it out. If I had to do, one lesson and I was watching my show on Netflix, I'm pretty sure my lesson would take a long time. So that's definitely one thing to think about too, is how or where are they doing their schoolwork. But our goal is that you're not really spending most of your day. We really want you to have just a nice amount of time, a nice balance. So if it's a lot or too much, that would be where, having a different schedule may be ideal, and maybe not. Maybe all of this talk about scheduling will make you realize I have a wonderful schedule in place and it's, spot on. But just definitely something to think about if it's taking too much or maybe too little of time. And I know sometimes I have families who don't do anything during the day, and I'm so happy to hear that nobody is saying I don't do anything. We work with a couple families who say, or who think it's homeschool, and we're really not a homeschool, so you can't just do nothing and ever do anything and expect to, make it to the next grade level. So I'm super happy to hear that you guys are doing your work. All right, so we want to take a little look really quick at some of the differences between traditional schools and online virtual school. And I want you to think about this too, because when it comes to scheduling, this is a very big deal. As a teacher, I know, and as parents, and as a person, we've all been in schools where the teacher tells us, hey, pull out chapter 3 of your science book. And all the students go to their cubby and they get their books out. Or if they're in high school, they pull out their textbook and they pull out their spiral notebook. So the teacher is really the one driving what they do and when they do. When do they get their restroom break? If they're in middle school or elementary, they get very specific breaks where they're allowed to use the restroom. So what is what is going on in that school building is really driven by the teacher. The students don't get to decide, hey, I'm going to do math now. Hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Hey, I'm going to take a lunch break. They don't get to do that. It would be kind of cool to do, but we would not get as much done as we want. So in the same turn, in our online or virtual school, we have a bigger window. We have 24 hours in a day. So my daughter could get her work done at 8 in the morning or 6 in the morning if she got up and I didn't want to wake up with her. Go do your work. She could work early in the morning. But who's driving that? Who is saying, let's do your math? Who's saying it's time to take a break? Who's making sure it's time to, eat the lunch, go to the restroom? If we let just the students do it, sometimes they don't regulate themselves enough and they spend too much time at lunch, or maybe too much time in the bathroom or with Netflix. Maybe they don't focus enough on school, or there are some students who really, my son is one. If I don't really stay on top of things, he might spend too long on one lesson. I'm going to work on this music lesson, and the music lessons give you so much information, and he feels he needs to read every single piece. He needs to really understand every single thing. Let's look up the words that he doesn't understand. Mom, what does this mean? Mom, what is this guy doing when he's writing this music? He wants to know all the things, and we could spend an entire day on one lesson. So I have to, watch that as well. We have to, as learning coaches, really think about what our students are doing. We can't just say, go do all the things, because they need a little bit of that structure. Even the high school students, a lot of them tend to put it off because it just feels big. It feels like there's many things on their list, and they don't just tackle it piece by piece. So we need to really help them. This is a screenshot of a K-5 student's plan, and it's the weekly view. It's my favorite view. It's the view I always tell all of our K-5 families to look at because it shows you the whole week. This is what we need to do this week. And then at the same turn, on Friday, I can look back at the week and see what I have done. So you can see each day is its own little column. Everything above the green line is the live class connects. Everything below with the circles, those are the lessons that they have to do. So as a parent or learning coach or a person who's working with a student, I can structure my day and I can say, okay, we've got this required class to go to in the morning, and then we can work on these when we are back from the doctors or whatever it is, but you have an idea of what you need to get done. And it's the same thing that we do with our homes. Okay, I know I need to mow the yard this weekend. I know I need to unload the dishwasher before I can make dinner because we have no clean dishes. Same thing with laundry. So we know in the back of our heads, we're always thinking about those things. That's what we need to think about here too, is what do they need to get done before they can go on to that next day or before they can do that next thing. Middle school, high school, this would be their visual when they log in. And I have it set up so that they're seeing the visual, or you're seeing the visual with the classes tab on the left-hand side is highlighted in white. That blue column, we call that the hallway. That is just like if you went into a school building and you walk down the hallway and you decide you're gonna go into your algebra class or you're gonna go into your history class. This is that same type of thing. Go in that blue hallway, click on classes, and then all those icons, those are your classrooms. Pick one and go into it. And it's highly suggested you do it this way so that you get all the announcements from your teachers. Sometimes they sneak in little things like just do the odd problems or the even problems, or I'm gonna give you an extension today, or you know what, don't worry about this page, or come to my lab class or help lab and you can get some extra credit, or I'll do number one with you. So there's so many important things that those teachers share with you that you don't get to see if you don't go into their classroom from these little icons. The icons are also helpful. At a quick glance, you can usually see what is the grade. Are there any overdue assignments? If you look here on this page, you can see there's 23 missing assignments for algebra. That's a little scary. So that would be something a learning coach might want to pay attention to. Hey, let's focus on algebra today. So it's a really good thing to look at. There is a question about how to get to this view. When you log in, you typically, and I just took out the one screen. I think that might have been helpful to this answer. There is a screen when you first log in, and it has a picture, and the blue bar on the left-hand side, that little hallway thing, usually the schedule is what is highlighted when you log in. So you have a very different visual than what this is. So you just want to click those tabs on the left-hand side, and then that should get you to this. All middle school, high school students and all learning coaches should have this view. So hopefully that question was for a middle school, high school student. So if you don't have this view and if you can't get to it, at the end of this, I will give you my email or my phone number, and I'll walk you through, or we'll take a look and see what you're seeing, and we'll make sure you're getting all the right stuff that you're supposed to be getting. Once you select, so your children or students, once they select the icon, the class that they want to go into, they're going to see the actual classroom. And in there, you get to see, how much progress have you made? Do you have any overdue? You want to talk to your teacher? You don't even have to look for who your teacher is. Just click on the My Teacher link right there, and it'll take you straight to this teacher. So they took a lot of that extra thinking out of this, which makes it so much easier. And the big area I tell them to look at is that gray bar at the top. Almost everything you need to do or would want to know is up in that gray bar. Find out your grades. Do you want to see what you got on your quiz? Click on grades. If you want to see how much you've done for the school year or for the week or whatever, click on your progress. Content is all of your lessons. So there's actually multiple spots in this where they can find the lessons that they have to do. There's a calendar that will show them when. So there's lots of resources here in those classrooms. All right, so I'm going to ask you to think about, how do you tell your children to clean their room? And I chose this example because most of us are parents, or most of us have a room, or most of us have had a room where we've had to keep something clean. So even if you're not a parent, maybe you're a student, whatever it is, you've had to at some point think about how to clean your room, or how do you tell your children to brush their teeth? How detailed do you get into that? Do you just say, do it? That's usually my husband's go-to. Go do it. Go do it. And I think, what are they doing? And I think that's the teacher in me, because I want to map out all the little pieces, and I have to, I need to do less than I normally do, and he needs to do a little bit more. So then it's go do it all. And that's a little too ambiguous as well. You can't just go do it all, as much as I would love to. And I do say that sometimes to my children, and I laugh when I say it, because I say, go do all the things. And I know, and they know, they can't do all the things. So I now kind of focus them a little bit, especially if I'm really teaching them how to do it. Maybe this is new with them. Maybe they just got a little lazy and haven't been doing it right for a while. Maybe I've been a little lazy as a mom, and I haven't been looking at my middle school son's room on purpose, or as much as I should, because, they have a smell, or I don't know what's going on in there. So now I can say, go start with the clothes. Go check out your laundry. Do you have dirty clothes? He always has dirty clothes and clean clothes, sometimes in the same basket. Go get all your clothes. Let's focus there. Let's figure it out. What's clean? What needs to go in the laundry? Make your bed. That's a nice thing to do. Makes your room look a little bit cleaner. Even if it's not, it's a nice little cheating method to make it look like your room is kind of clean. Dust. I will admit, we don't dust all the time. It's Arizona, and we live in Surprise. It's very dusty. So that might not be high on our list, but it is something that we do try to do sometimes. So, that could be on the list. Maybe there's trash on the floor. So I really try to get them used to some small pieces, some tiny chunks. Are there any things that you tell your children when you're telling them to go clean their room? Do you want to use the chat area and share with us how you might tell your children to go clean their room? And I still can't see my chat, so I'm hoping some things are coming in there. So hopefully you guys have some things.
she turned my mic off again. She knows I talk too much.
Maybe. I'm not sure how I took your powers away.
So some of them, I tell them in detail every step, which is what needs to happen. I did not do that with my baby, sadly, but we talked the day before and about it the next day. That's great. Can you take out your trash and start picking up around the room? Clean your room, or everything is going in the trash. I like that one.
That is fun.
I at some points just say, just please pick something. I don't care what it is. Just give me something.
So we all have our ways of doing it, and our children, they know us, even if they're young. They know what we mean when we say pick up the trash. They don't get to just say, well, I did pick up one piece. I mean, they know what you're expecting, what you want, but we can't always just say, do it. We have to, at some point, sort of train them, coach them on what they're doing. Great answers, everybody. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to think about when we're telling them what to do and how we're telling them what to do. And we're thinking about their school day. And maybe this is new to you, maybe it's not, being a learning coach. But we want to think about our mindset. How are we approaching them? So my son's version of cleaning his room, it's so different from mine. He built a little wall around some of his things with like his tall toys. And he thought somehow I would not see that he had this little barricade around this section of his room where all of his dirty clothes, random clothes, who knows, was sort of in this pocket of what he thought was this invisible area. That's not my version of cleaning your room. So I needed to kind of work with him, kind of coach him, find some positive things. Dude, I love how you try to keep it all in one area. However, we need to put some of those things away, or, get those clothes to the dirty clothes hamper so you can wash them. So I need to point out some positive things and then help him realize you can't just hide everything. I know in my day, everything went under my bed or in my closet. I thought my son was pretty brilliant in building his own little barricade area instead of just using his bed or his closet. But he has learned over time that, well, one, moms notice things, and two, that he can't really clean his room in that way. It really isn't clean. And I do try to let him know when I notice that he is doing things well. And the same thing about sports. A lot of us have our children in sports. There's a lot of sports going on these days. I feel like back in my day, I don't feel like as many of us were in sports. I don't know if they were offered as much, or maybe I just didn't pay attention, but it seems like there are so many children in sports. And that coach, they have a different mindset. So my son's soccer coach, he actually coaches him. This is how you shoot a goal. This is how you pass to your teammates. This is how you sneak the ball away. He can't just say, you missed the goal. You did not pass. You did not steal the ball. You can't just track what they do bad. You can't just focus on the things that they're not doing well. So if he only focused on the negative, then of course my son would probably hate the sport. He might not ever play it again, and he definitely is not going to get better. So we need to make sure that we're really focusing. It's not just, you didn't do algebra today. It's, switch it around a little bit and let's think about, okay, let's open algebra. Let's go in and see what's going on. Let's look at all the things you still need to do in algebra. So we want to change our mindset a little bit, and then that by default usually will help the students change their mindset as well. I'm going to push you a little bit again. I'm going to see if you guys can raise your hand in Zoom. So in case you want to jump on the microphone for this next question. Oh my goodness, nicely done. Karen Dolan, she just raised her hand. You guys are fast. Look at that. So I did put up on the board 2 screens or 2 images. So in case you're on a phone or a tablet, or in case you're in the computer, you guys can raise your hand if you want to jump on the microphone. Well, this is you guys are the best class, because usually I don't have people who can find their area to raise their hand. So I'm super excited. Nice work, everybody. Impressive. So now I'm going to go to the next screen, and, well, maybe I'll wait about 10 more seconds and see if anybody needs some more of those instructions. Click on participants, and then at the bottom of the list, you'll see a thing that says raise hand. So that's what it would look like if you're on the computer. So I'm going to have you, and you can raise your hand up and down if you want, but I'm going to ask you in a moment if you want to talk on your microphone. I think I can unmute you. I'm using a webinar, which is a little different than our normal virtual meeting. So I'm pretty sure I can unmute you as well. So hold on one moment. All right, so I'm going to look at our participants and see, I'm hoping, any raised hands, and see if there's anybody who wants to go on their microphone and chat with us about some ideas, some ways you could coach your students, some things that you do to work with your children, to get them to do what they need to do. All right, Sarah, excellent. All right, Sarah, go ahead and go on your microphone. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Did I do it?
You did, nicely done.
Okay. Luckily, I use Zoom for my distance schooling from my teacher in Colorado.
Excellent.
So one of the things I do is when my daughter will complain that when her grades drop below a B, and I'll go in and I'll see how much time she's spending, and I'm like, well, let's go back and let's read over it more extensively instead of speed reading, because she'll speed read for the answers and stuff, and she's not getting that education that she needs. So I coach her into spending more time on her work.
That's outstanding. And we do pick up our traits from our students, or we see what our children are doing. So you pick up on the fact that she's speed reading. And I'm, a huge advocate of doing that, and also not a big advocate of doing that as a teacher. I know I tend to quickly skim over things, but just like you're saying, I've had to coach my children and my students and say, you can skim at first, but you do often need to go back and read for meaning, read for understanding. You can't always find the answers or understand what's going on without going back and rereading. So that's great that you do that. And great that you noticed that that's what she needed. Good coaching.
Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else want to take the plunge and jump online on your microphone? All right. I don't see any more hands jumping up, so that's just fine. All right. So there's lots of different things that we can do to work with our children, and you'll know what works for your kids. Sometimes it's super cutesy, sometimes it's not. It just depends on what you have established with your children. And if you want new things to establish, then you just start coaching sometimes from the ground up, no matter how old they are. All right, I'm going to show you now, it's, I think, 2.5 minutes, maybe 3-minute video. And it really takes a look at changing something that potentially could be negative and sort of flipping it into a positive. So I really feel like when I watched this, it really made me think for an extra moment about my approach to things, my thoughts on what I'm seeing, or my approach to my students, or my job, or my children, sometimes my husband. Some things that I take as a negative, maybe I need to switch it a little bit and think about it differently. So let me stop sharing because I want to make sure I can share this with you. All right, give me one moment. Sometimes these videos take a little bit. All right.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I just I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me and he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
So I've seen this video a couple times, and each time I think I get a few more goosebumps when I see it, because it just makes me think about what it is that I'm seeing when I see my children do things that I find maybe annoying or maybe crazy, or maybe I think it's super negative. But if I think about it maybe for a little bit more, maybe it's not so negative. Maybe all the pictures they take on their phone, which drives me bonkers. Maybe they're going to be, someone who puts together videos or movies, or some of those claymation movies. My son is now doing I got him into taking pictures with his Lego people, so he's moving them. And he takes a million pictures of his Legos instead of me walking around the house. So much more flattering to see lots of little Lego people in his phone as opposed to me. So little things that we change our mindset a little bit. Sometimes I think that can also be a helpful thing. All right, let's go back to this. So let's think about it in terms of changing our mindsets a little for our schoolwork. What are some things that you do or could do, or maybe now you want to do, that are helping you get things done each day or each week? Go ahead and you can just use the chat box area if you'd like. What are some things that you do to help you make sure you get it done? Do you have a checklist? Do you check over their work every day? What are some things you're doing to get things done? There you go. Sorry about that. You can go. Up, and I unmuted you, and now I could see the chat box. It popped up with your picture.
So funny, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I wonder why that does that.
I don't know. So I see that people are waking up earlier. Oh, and kudos to you if you're doing that, because that is not an easy thing to do. Checklist, talk about goals. That's fantastic. special lunch and snack. That is great. Talking to your student, that's good. There's a lot of families that we see that just really do truly say, just go and do all the things. And we kind of coach the families too on let's take it back a little bit and let's break it down. Let's start with, pick your favorite subject, or pick the subject that you don't really like the most. Let's do that first and get it done. It depends on your family, your children, them, but let's do things a little bit differently. Let's change things up a little bit. These are all great. I like seeing all these things in here. Anything else before I jump on or move over? And Liz, I cut you off, I think. Did you have anything else?
No, great.
Okay.
Great stuff.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to show you the last slide I have for you, and I will explain why. So this is a picture of a calendar of one of our blended learning sites. This month we did it in terms of having an in-person session where I went and other teachers went to these sites around the valley and we presented this information. And then I'm doing sort of an encore today. I think probably in the future we may even have it combined where it's just one big virtual. But next month you'll see some information where we will hold another seminar like this. There will be an online session and we'll chat, we'll share, we'll talk about the things that we're doing or could do or want to do in terms of our children, our students, how to make things better, and perhaps some new information too that you haven't known or thought about before. It's kind of handy to have other learning coaches or parents or moms, dads, siblings, whatever it is. It's fun to have a sense of community where we're all working together and sharing some ideas. At these blended learning sites, they also have different workshops. So I highlighted one here in the afternoon. If you're close to one of our sites, you can just go in and they'll help you with math or language. You can take your student there and a teacher or staff member there will work with them in person. And sometimes a little bit of one-on-one time or a small group of kids and a teacher, something a little different from what you normally do is pretty helpful. And I know sometimes my own children, they don't want to hear from me when I'm trying to teach them sometimes. And I usually have to refrain from saying, but I'm a teacher. I know all the things. They don't want to hear it from mom or dad or, sister. They want someone else to say something like that. So, if you have the chance and the ability, there is our district website and it has all of our blended learning locations. So you might want to jump on in and go check one out and, maybe do some of these drop-in sessions where you get some extra help. From here, you get to do what you want. You get to think about your schedules. Don't think about your schedules. That's up to you. But maybe some of the things that we shared today or some of the things the other parents shared in the chat box or on microphone, maybe it will stick with you a little bit and it will help you in some way, or you'll realize perhaps you're doing it all great. But the thing is, we want you to just think about what you're doing. And then hopefully that will all show up in terms of your students doing the work and they're getting done what they need to get done. If you want any extra help too, or you want any extra resources, I am always here for that. I'm going to go ahead and type it in the chat box, my phone number, which I have to look at because, 4 years with one phone number and I still don't know it. But it is right there in the chat box. If you'd like to give me a call, I'm always happy to chat with you, to discuss stuff. I love brainstorming, so I'd be happy to brainstorm with you or come up with some ideas or plans or schedules. And thank you, Mrs. Hall. She just added the link to our website. So our district website will show you all of these. It will show you all the things. It will give you so many resources that you can check out, starting with that blended learning tab, and it will show you all the places that you can go. I will be messaging out some information for our next session, and that's towards the end of October. So probably the first 2 weeks of October, you'll start seeing some information for me for save the date and, so you can join us online in our next webinar. All right, I hope you all have a great day. Feel free to go ahead and log out or feel free to stay and ask some more questions. But if you do want to log out, if you highlight your screen again, hover over the bottom, you'll see something that says leave meeting. It's not always easy to leave these Zoom meetings for some reason. They kind of trap you in here. Have a wonderful day, everybody.